Hi, good evening. I'm Steve Rader Ginsburg, and I'm the director of the Ottorino Center for the Arts and Humanities at the University of St. Joseph in West Hartford, Connecticut, which is the original and unceded lands of the Mohegan, Pequot, Scatachoke, Golden Hill Pagessett, Nipmuc, Lenape, and all the unrecognized Algonquin people of this area. We honor their ancestors past, present, and future, and recognize their continued existence and contributions to society. This year continues to be an unusually challenging year for the arts and artists and our ability to gather together as a community. Thanks to our program funders, the National Endowment for the Arts, the New England Foundation for the Arts, Edward C. and Ann T. Roberts Foundation, and those of you who have generously donated to make this and other programming free. The 2021 Ottorino season is our Let's Dance season. It's our effort to help inspire getting up, using your body, staying healthy, happy, and dancing. Tonight, through our Artist in Resident program, we are hosting the fourth of 7 virtual engagements with Music from the Soul, Tap Dance, and the Underground. Music from the Soul is a tap dance and live music company that blurs the line between concert dance and music performance and celebrates tap's roots in the African diaspora. Tonight, we have 2 co-artistic directors, Leonardo Sandoval, Gregory Richardson, and this is hosted by Rafael Xavier. Leonardo Sandoval is a Brazilian tap dancer that has established a reputation in the tap world and beyond for his musicality and for adding his own Brazilian flavor to tap. An artist in residence at the National Dance Institute and the American Tap Dance Foundation, and a core member of Dorrance Dance. He is in demand as a choreographer, dancer, jazz musician, and educator, touring across the United States and abroad. A true dancer-musician, Leo's artistry is rooted in America's great jazz and tap dance heritage, and in Brazil's rich rhythmic and musical forms, with additional influences from contemporary and urban dances. Gregory Richardson, co-artistic director, born to a family of musicians where everyone was expected to play and sing. Gregory Richardson is a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and the co-artistic director of Music from the Soul. He's also the co-musical director of Dorrance Dance. Next is Rafael Xavier, originally from Wilmington, Delaware. Rafael is an award-winning artist and alumnus of the world-renowned hip-hop dance company Rennie Harris Pure Movement. 2013 Pew Fellowship grantee, 2016 Guggenheim Fellow, and 2016 United States Artist Fellow. Xavier has been a professional breaker dancer for the last 20 years, working in a variety of fields, including music, photography, and film. He is currently in production on a new repertory show called Sassafras, From Roots to Mastery. The production features a jazz quartet and 4 breakers, highlighting the parallels of street dance, improvisation, and African-American forms. I want to let you know that both Music from the Soul and Xavier's Sassafras they were planning on performing live for you at the Ottorino Center for the Arts this year. And because of the pandemic, they were not able to be here. So they are here virtually in conversation. But the good news is that they will both be on our stage live in the fall or spring of next year. So keep your eyes out for that and join us next week for the next conversation with Music from the Soul. I'm going to turn it over to Rafael Xavier. Thank you so much for hosting this conversation today. I'm looking forward to hearing Tap, Dance, and the Underground.
Wow, we got a lot to live up to, gentlemen. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I guess.
Listen, I'm absolutely excited to be able to moderate this conversation, have this conversation with you guys for several reasons. And I'm not going to take too long to say all of that, but I just want to say I've always been an admirer of tap because of the athleticism in a way that wasn't projected to me through dance or as a dancer. You didn't think of it that way. And as a sprinter or an athlete, I just thought like, wow. When I watched Gregory Hines, I was like, wow, I bet that guy can run. Like weird, right? Because it's always about the feet. The feet would just going the whole time. You're like, wow, that's amazing. But I want to say, I want to get to a point of like, first of all, where did you begin for Leo? Where did you begin tap and when?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the great introduction, Steve. And I'm super excited to talk to you too, Rafael and Greg as well. Just saying hi. But jumping into that question, I started tap dancing when I was 7 years old. And I commonly say that I didn't choose to tap dance. Tap dance kind of chose me. I was dancing around my house with my parents, watching me all the time, like just dancing regular songs and like having myself moving. Because my mom was watching and seeing that I was a natural dancer, she put me to do ballet lessons. And in my ballet lessons, my teacher actually saw that I had musicality sense. And he was like, he should be doing percussive dance actually. And that's how I met tap dance, and
Right
then I never stopped. Yeah.
And Gregory, how about yourself?
I grew up with music in the home also. My father was a musician. He was a singer, also a school teacher, but he was an R&B singer and a guitarist and had a band. So they would rehearse at the house. And he would use us to help him do his gigs. My brother's 2 years older than me. He was their sound man. And we would, put all their gear away and stuff. And then also all of my family my father's side is pretty strongly connected to the church. So my grandfather played organ, was paid by different churches to play. My uncles play piano and organ for churches, my cousins. And then even my uncles and aunts that didn't play at the churches professionally, they could all play some songs and sing. So, my father was always setting up little things for us to do. He got a 4-track recorder back. You remember when a 4-track was like on a cassette tape?
Oh, yeah.
And he bought one. It was like a big deal in the house. And he was like making us record songs, like making me sing the high part when I was little.
Yeah.
And my mom also is not a musician, but my father loved music, played music, didn't listen to music that much. He had a record collection, but it wasn't like he was always playing music. He liked videos when it was like the age of MTV and stuff was coming out. Mm-hmm. But my mom had a massive CD collection that we were allowed to play with. So that was kind of a big thing too.
Right on. Were you using a Tascam?
Yeah, it was a Tascam.
That was an ultimate recording for everybody. The 4-track Tascam 4-track was always the go-to. It was a cheap version for everybody who was like a beginning level home recording session.
Yeah, and at the time it was like a bigger deal than it is now. And I still think I do most of my composing on the computer now.
Yeah,
I'm laying things down track by track. I don't it's not like I sit at the piano or I get out a piece of paper and write. And I know that's because when I was 10, we were playing with the Tascam.
Yeah, no doubt. Right on. So my first question is specifically for Leo. When you think of tap dance, especially for me, I think of New York City, Philadelphia, Louisiana, because there's some for Philly stepping or the GQ was a lot of footwork, cha-cha steps and things like that resemble tap. And in Louisiana, you had the guys put the bottle caps on the bottom of their shoes, and they would do the street dance thing. And in New York City, you had the masterful tap dancers, right? But when you think of Brazil, tap dance is not a thing that you think about people practicing, right? So how is it perceived when you have traditions that come from that country? How is it perceived or looked at when you're practicing?
And unmute. There you go. Yeah, it's really interesting because I know as tap dance is definitely an American art form, and like you wouldn't think of it as practice in Brazil, but the tap dance community around the world actually is very strong and I would say big. I know it's not like big as a music community or anything like that, but Through My Eyes is a big community,
Yeah. Yes.
and it's very tied together. So the information kind of travel throughout those communities very, very often. And Brazil is a strong, has its strong tap community within the country. Like, save to a couple cities, like majorly the big cities, São Paulo and Rio, but there is this tap community there. And like when it got Through My Eyes, it came in a time that where tap dance was kind of resurging in America in a sense, with Gregory Hines and Savion Glover. That those are the guys that were on TV and doing performances when I was actually starting to dance and starting to tap dance and like learning the art form. So it was a huge influence from African American culture for me at that time. Yeah, so I think that's why I was connected to it too as well, like because of the music and dance being tied to an American art form, even though it was whitewashed. Was whitewashed for so many times, and like all the students around me were white. The people we were looking to it were Gregory Hines and Savion Glover. So that was mainly how it was perceived, at least through my eyes and like to the community who are around me.
Gotcha.
What about the like indigenous forms of like kind of Brazilian percussive dance though also?
Yeah. There's it's interesting because what I was learning and what I was doing is American tap dance, but when I usually as a kid, as a performer, and I was dancing in places where tap dance were not a thing, outside of my dance studio, like performing, people would see us dancing and they would name that dance that I was doing, which was tap dance, something related to a Brazilian art form that is dancing, like catira or catira is the one that comes strong in my head, but like coco too as well, which are percussive dances, dance with your feet and that you make rhythm and sound with your feet, but it's not tap dance. And it's interesting that it was that misunderstanding, like, oh, he's Brazilian, he's doing this dance, it might be that one, but I was actually borrowing and learning American art form.
Right. There's a lot of I spent some time there, 6 months there, and I was in the sun. I just stayed. The beach was down the street. The sun was turning me into this bronze masterpiece. So people thought I was Brazilian until I opened my mouth, and I was like, "Oh, slow down." Right. But I learned, I learned the language. I learned different styles and flavor, and I could hear different rhythms. And there's samba. There's in Brazil. There's this in Rio. There's this carioca thing, and all these things were going on. So for Gregory working with Leo, do you guys find a way to mix these things in, the rhythms and the flavors and the funk style, so to speak, into the music that you're making for the work? Does that make sense? That you got all these things to work with, all these ingredients to work with from Brazil and America, and how do you bring those things together? What do you bring together in that space to come up with the sound?
I think it's baked in pretty naturally, because part of our permanent goal is to make sure that the music and that the tap is music and that it's locking in, that it's not like music that we make music and put tap on top. We really try to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
So anything Leo's bringing, whether it's American influence or Brazilian, it's really baked into the music. Music is made around that, and then vice versa. Leo obviously isn't just a dancer; he has like a huge musical palette and a wide-ranging interest of like different music types. So I mean, some of our compositions, like Leo wrote, you know, like he wrote the melody, and then I'll just flesh it out around it. So, and then I'm really interested in, I mean, obviously American music, R&B, soul, funk, hip hop, reggae are things I just grew up as. That's just you know, second nature. But also Brazilian music was in my house too. So I think we bring all these in. I think we just bring these in. I don't feel like we're ever really trying to be like, let's make it Brazilian, or let's you know, it just kind of
happens.
You know, we put some thought into it, but basically it just comes because of what we like.
Yeah. Organically, sometimes the best things come that way, and when you try to force those things together, it doesn't always work. But I think, you know, just seeing the work that you guys have done, and seeing some of the interviews about you speaking, it feels and looks like it's a natural thing, and none of it was forced. I mean, everybody was, you know, having a good time. So let me ask you this then. You know, coming from America, you have all these different styles of music, right? So what's and then over here you have samba, and here you got hip hop, reggae, rock, funk, like all these things. How does samba relate to funk, so to speak? Let's take those two things. They're funk and samba. How do they relate, if they're not one and the same?
I think, Greg, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel that all black music, I would say all black music, independent if it's from Brazil or if it's from America, the types of songs that we try to incorporate together, they swing. Maybe not in the same way, but they swing in a way that they can have a conversation when we put one over the other. And I also think that the reason that magic happened is because they come from the same root. And that's why I think and I feel like it's very natural to put them together and to mix them together, because in the root they are the same thing. Like they come from like the history that brought those type of songs up. It's not the same, but has a same narrative. And that's my perspective, like my very superficial perspective.
Right on. Comes from the soul. Gregory?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think on a technical level, like even samba, you know, like that strong accent is always on the two. Like it's like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. It's not that different than the snare being on the 2 and the 4. In the US, it's like a super basic syncopation that like the strong beat is not the one.
Yeah.
You know, it's the one right after.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty universal. Like it doesn't matter if you're Dominican or you're Brazilian or you're Jamaican or you're from South Carolina or whatever. Like when you get it when you hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what's up. That conversation, that little talk reminds me of a song by Tom Brown called Jamaican Funk. Jamaican Funk, that's what it is, right? Yeah. It just comes from, you bring that island feel, that thing to the space. Let's talk about how, I guess, in a way where hip hop infiltrated the idea of tap. My introduction to tap, aside from, let me say this. There's a movie called Uptown Saturday Night, and one of the Nicholas brothers played Little Seymour, a gangster. That was the first time that I saw a tap dancer not tapping, right? And so it put me in this place of finding who was who and how did he get there and how come he didn't dance, and so you see this, that there's a couple questions I want to ask here, but you see that as being an old man, right, in a non-dance space. Then you have Savion Glover, who ushers in a new generation of tapping with a hip hop feel to it, a different approach, because he was a different generation. And so he brings these things into a space that gets the attention of people who weren't into tap, like myself, because now there's a young kid who's doing this thing from my neighborhood, so to speak. Do you feel like at some point, let me say this, what were the influences that he had in tap, first of all?
Savian.
Yes.
He was like a water divisor, you would say. Like there is no, I guess that only works in Portuguese. But there is like a before Savian and after.
Oh, like a watershed moment.
Yes, yeah. There is a before Savian and after Savian moment, and to get to that point, I just want to make a little point of like. Yeah. Before Savian, like being looking into the to those influences that we were talking about, and I want to touch about it. Yeah. Nice to imagine and like know that these people that Savian were looking into before were looking into tap dance to get influence. So I love the cycle. But what Savian did and like the way that he was dancing was unique. Like first, he was dancing and having a vocabulary that was extremely personal and was from himself. And I see it, and I mean, it's common for dancers and tap dancers to see it, that his body vocabulary was completely different from another vocabulary that was being danced before him. And like if I really like spread it out and like being very simple, like the Broadway type, the Broadway tap style, like but your body is more straight and you're more performatic, and he was working with the sound like and like facing the floor and like bringing everything to inside. And I see that a lot in the hip hop community too as well, when you dance over here and like as a protection and a physicality. So that was first the physicality that I saw that he like was watching and through my eyes grabbing from it. The way that he was dressing himself, it was completely influenced by the 90s and the hip hop, and like the way that those young dancers were dressing themselves as well. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, he was also dancing to the music that wasn't traditionally danced by tap dancers.
Right.
That was like the biggest shift, because he wasn't swinging so much, and he was making it funkier and you know, he was bringing the noise and bringing the funk, and that we all know that show, and basically that show is a huge illustration not of tap history, but as well as of tap dance at that moment, you know, like what it was happening to the art form. And that's what that show is so important, that why Savian is so important. Like he changed it, the way that people were perceiving the dance, and especially for young people, like, because
absolutely
it was so hype. Hip hop was so hype, and he was putting that to this African American art form that was kind of forgotten a little.
Absolutely.
And yeah, he's a key and a king. Yes. For that, yeah,
I can absolutely agree, because I just had this impression of all the old people. It was an old dance, and then he comes along, and now it's like, oh snap, we got a younger generation. Our generation is in this space and is turning into something else. Can we see the difference between? By any chance, do you guys have a video that we can see where there's a difference between then and now, or funk and samba movements?
We can put a difference between like the tap from what it was before Savian and like what it was after Savian. If we go to our video number 3, we're gonna see first what it was before, this amazing video of Bilbo Jangles Robinson, who is swinging and like classic, and like it's a very different physicality. It will be a drastic change when we see Save Him, but it will make a point. Yeah. So if maybe we can see the video number 3, that's what I said. Yes, 3.
In 1937, Bill was finally scheduled to play a role that allowed him to trade in his servant garb for an elegant top hat and tails. But in a last-moment decision, the studio inexplicably cut his part from the film, and this rare footage was locked away in the studio vaults, never to be seen.
Yeah, so that was Bilbo Jangles Robinson, like, and in his, I would say, in his master in his best moment, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's see what Savian did with the art form, and I think that is video number 1. Yeah, and this is actually a little snap of the show that we were talking about, bringing the noise and bringing the funk. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that changed a lot, huh?
Yo, that was crazy watching that.
That was so 90s. Wow.
Man, that was crazy to watch that, man. Incredible. I mean, and you can see the difference between how you have this mature soul in this space, this masterful movement, this elegant dance to watch this guy just do his thing. And then you have the braggadocio street hip hop element to this movement, and it just turned it into something else, man. I saw Omar. I recognized Omar Edwards. I toured with Omar Edwards, Max Pollock, Tamango Van Casile, the show we did for 2 years in the early 90s. And it was incredible to work with them, like to be up close and personal with a tap dancer and go back and forth with this hip hop thing and this American tradition in a way I've never seen it before was amazing. Now at that time, we were kids. Like I was 30 years old. I was 29, 20, 28, 29, 30 years old. And I'd never done anything like that before. And then you get these tappers who get on stage and they do their thing like Like they know it. The routines were sharp. Everybody was sharp. And the hip hop dancers, you just get on and we do our thing and we go on about our business. So you can see the difference between the experience and non-experience, right? Or you guys ever come across any challenges with like younger generations of dancers and putting that stuff on stage, like taking it from the street and putting it on stage? It doesn't always translate. Like, how do you guys deal with that?
It's definitely a different media, right? I mean, you can't bring what you have like in the battle scene or like in a cypher scene into the stage, like just literally take this block and put it over there. No, we can't. It's a little bit of a personal struggle too as well, because what I enjoy like to do for 1 hour is not going to be what an audience sitting down will enjoy for an hour, and that's why it's a personal struggle too as well to figure it out how to do that. And going back just a little bit between the Savian and Bilbo Jingles, not to like prize one thing or the other, like one style or the other, like both of them are extremely important for our dance and art form. It's just magical how Savian brought like a whole entire generation to do that, and magically he found a way to bring that street vibe to the stage, and it's key. Like I don't think we have any. I personally don't have any pointed stories of how I struggle to do this transition. But I think I struggle every day with that. It's a different media.
Raphael, as a choreographer of like a soloistic dance form, what have you learned about how to put multiple bodies on stage? You know, doing something that's not a cipher. Like what are some lessons or some tools that you've used?
There are a lot of lessons. I mean, I'll start with me, like just not understanding how to use the stage, right? You come from this place of a circle, right? There's no front in a circle. Wherever you land is a front. Wherever you're dealing in this circumference that belongs to you. And so Leo said something where, you know, the hip hop dancer Savian was doing this thing where it was about his space. So you are dancing in this personal space. That's a space you cannot take from. It's very difficult to take that space and put on the stage where you got 40 feet to deal with now. It's not like 6-7 feet, a circular space circumference. You now have 40 feet that you need to deal with. And so I always had this, I was into myself all the time. I didn't know how to enter and exit the wings. Like you don't stop and then walk out. You dance out, right? You dance in, not walk out, not walk in and dance. So it was things like that I didn't really understand. So learning all of these little things that existed in that space before I get there, and then you bring in the younger guys who don't understand that, and you explain it to them. You can't explain it to them. I had a problem explaining it to them. I had to show them, right? Which is how we learn hip hop anyway. Like we learn by visually learning these things. So you have to demonstrate that to them. And so when you do a solo, usually it's 45, 50 seconds, maybe a minute if you're lucky. Now you got to turn that 40-second, 50-second solo into 10 minutes at one time on a 40-foot space. So not only one element, you got two elements, and then you have the element of, what do you call it? Surprise. Because if you're doing your solo and you stand up and you're not facing front, you're in trouble. Because now your front is deliberately in the front. It's not on the side, it's not on the left, it's not on the right. But, you know, as a choreographer, I bring it all the way back to me as a choreographer. I understand those elements that those younger dancers bring, and their inexperience. And so I work with that. So if they do end up not in the front, or their solo doesn't last, then I have to show them how wherever you end up, we'll end up there with you. We'll create the choreography around your mistake, or not mistakes, but we'll create the choreography around your inexperience. So now we all take the weight of the inexperience and turn it into an experience. So I don't want anybody to look silly. I know I did, and I don't want that. I don't want my dancers or anybody I work with to look silly or feel like it's all about rap and his choreography and his story and this and that. I want to share. I want to teach them how to share. And then when we do this show, it's about sharing. It's not about how great your solo was. It's not about how you did this flip and somebody fell out of one. You have to cover for them. But when you're in a circle and you learn this thing about everything being me and my moment, I'm trying to get my street cred or props. It's about you, and you lose that sense of, you don't understand that sense of sharing, man. So it goes a long way when you develop a skill set from street, circle, cipher to the stage. It goes a long way. And I think there's so many things that I can continue to learn about this street form on a stage in a mature space, so the audience can see how this dance can grow, because it's still associated with youth, man, right? And so when you put these things on stage, you put this street stuff on stage, these things that people recognize as a youthful form or true to the culture, some people think it loses something, right? The purists think you lose the essence of it when you take it from its roots and you put on stage, right? So how do you preserve this stuff? My question to you guys, how are you preserving these things? Like Leo coming from another a country with different traditions, solid traditions. And then Greg out here with me in America, who kind of, we hold on to something and then we let it go or throw it away until somebody else picks it up. And now we have a problem with it, right? So how do we preserve the essence of the roots on both sides?
Just real quick, someone was asking what a cipher is, so if one of you wants to.
Oh, I'll explain a cipher. I want to say, I have a question about who asked that question. How old are you, and where did you first hear it at? A cipher first came about with the rappers in the late mid 80s, mid 90s, somewhere in that space, because a lot of the rappers were studying 5%, Islamic 5% nation. So a lot of the information was about studying in a cipher. The cipher held information. It was about the sharing and knowledge that you were learning about yourself. Everything was 360 degrees. It was in a cipher, right? Sun, moon, stars, queen, king. I forgot that stuff. I used to know a lot of that stuff. Anyway, that was the cipher. So rappers brought that word cipher into the hip hop space. Circle was for the dancers and the clubs. It was always dancing in the club, right? Circle dancing. It's not new, but when you're a hip hop artist, you embody the things that are around you. So cipher just seemed to slip into this thing of what the hip hop culture was doing. So they're both the same, but cipher has more, it holds more information about information and the community than a circle does in that way. But yet the circle holds a lot of information and incredible power in the community, in the dance community. Same, similar, same difference, not quite. It's how you look at it, your perspective of it. I hope that helps.
I didn't know that. That's like new information to me. I never put together that was from the 5% thing.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Either myself. Yeah, and we, as tap dancers, we also borrowed the language.
Yeah.
We also say ciphering, and that was a much Yeah, of what we've been doing lately.
Yeah, and I mean, it absolutely works because we are sharing that information. You know, it's cyclical. Everything is cyclical. I have a thing about, there's always this thing about, and we'll get into this too later with you guys and women and the male female dynamic within the tap dance world. But for me to understand the circle, people think that that zero is useless, but the zero is the most powerful number on the scale, because without the zero, none of those other numbers go anywhere, right? And so the circle represents female fertility. And women always say that there's no room for them in a male-dominated hip-hop dance world. That's absolutely not true. Because when you look at how powerful the circle is, it's full of female fertility and female energy. And the way I look at it, that's why the guys are so at each other's head to get in that circle to represent their love for the energy that's going on, the female energy, female fertility that's going on in that circle. It has nothing but a lot to do with, I'm going to outdo you. I'm going to be better than you, right? I'm going to destroy you, all for the love of the female fertility that's coming out of that circle. That's my perspective of that. That's how powerful that is. But we look at it as there's too many men in there. I'm not going in there. Get in there. You're already in there. Go get yours. Anyway, so let's talk about that, man. The dynamics of maybe females and the male numbers, and if the female feels like it's a male-dominated, tap is a male-dominated dance, and if they feel intimidated in a way. But I mean, we've seen male. I know a female, Roxanne Butterfly, incredible. Oh my God, Omar's wife. I can't think of her name. Dumbry. Oh my God.
Her name I will not remember as well. But there's so many female.
I feel bad. Yes, there are, and they do their thing. They do their thing. But do you guys come across that at all? Is there any issues with women feeling like it's dominated by men?
It definitely was a male-dominated scene for a long time in America specifically, and there's this quote from Gregory in a festival. Gregory Hines in one, I can't remember exactly the festival it was, but he was the one who actually acknowledged and brought to the circle and to the cipher all this female power with Diane Walker and it was definitely a male-dominated art form, and that changed it throughout the years. Obviously, the representation is not the same, and there's a long way to come. But there's Michelle Dorrance, who is our director, and it's a strong name into the tap community. Absolutely. To not say like the most strong name in the tap community right now. Chloe Arnold, who is an extremely successful choreographer into the commercial world, and she's tap dancer, a sick tap dancer. And I can go on and on. Michaela Lehrman is doing such an amazing job in New York with the Dormisha's. How can I forget?
That's the name I was trying to figure out. Dormisha Shambru, yes.
Yeah. Now she goes by Dormisha, and
okay.
Dormisha. She's as power as her name. Yeah,
she moved up now.
And that the representation is there, and they are taking their space. But it wasn't. It was definitely a male-dominated art form for many many years. Yes.
Yeah. Greg, man, let's talk about some music, man. My background is hip hop, obviously, and I borrow from a lot of different influences, whether it's rock, jazz, and things like that. But what is your main influence for creating the music? Do you do it alone? Where does it come from, or do you collaborate with some of the other tappers or dancers in the group?
There's a lot of sometimes, like I was saying, Leo has brought like a melody that he's just literally singing. We build a song around it, or he could bring a rhythm, a tap rhythm. We have on some of our latest compositions, like I wrote a drum part on the computer, and then he turned it into tap choreography. Or not the choreography, but the tap music. Our pianist Noé was doing some playing some Debussy in the rehearsal room one time, and I snatched his music from him and stole a couple bars, kind of like sampled it. I thought it came out, I was really happy with it. It came out really well.
Nice.
Because he's a classical pianist, and I kept wanting to showcase what he can do. Really, with us, he's playing chords, just like long chords, and he can do so much more. And I can't write that. You know what I mean? So I was like, let me steal this Debussy's music book. And yeah, I would say my biggest influences are the people around me. It's not really a particular musician or style. It's the people that I'm working with. Everybody has such different strengths that if I know that that's the palette, then that's kind of what I'm working with. I'm trying to really showcase. Some people are improvisers.
Yeah.
Some people have a great sense of rhythm, you know. Some people have more of like melodic strength. Some people have stage presence. And so it's really just kind of working with what I have. But I do spend a lot of time working alone, even though in the end it comes in being with the group and spending many hours with the group. I do spend a lot of hours by myself at the computer, either during the compositional process, or the song is finished, but I spend a lot of time editing it or mixing it. And I play bass and I play guitar and electric bass, and I have a keyboard. I'm not great at it, but I use it as a tool. And I'm very comfortable programming drums and beats and stuff too. So
right on. I can dig it. So you just start playing and then you put it down and tap.
I like to layer, you know. I think that's how we all.
I'm being funny because you're on bass at one moment, everybody's dancing with your music, and then you just put the bass down and be like, "Yo, I'm gonna do my thing real quick." And you just hit it.
You know, I actually did do that, but I did that through finding a bassist named Jennifer Vincent, who's better than me. So now I can just write the parts and watch her go, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, so we have a live band on stage, and I was watching some clips from, you know, your creation process from Sassafras, and I saw that, you know, that you have kind of the same vibe. And me and Leo were just talking about today, it's something we talk about a lot, is like, how do you, for a question for both of you, is like, how do you think about having musicians on stage and not detracting from the dance or not taking up too much space, or like, because you know, the funny thing is we're talking about Cypher, and in rehearsal room, we don't call it anything, but obviously you're looking at each other.
Right.
We would never, if we're just making music, doing it the way we want to do it, we would never go into a room and set up in a line and be like, let's all look at the mirror. Like, we're looking at each other every rehearsal, and then all of a sudden we get on stage and it's like, oh, this sucks. Like, the drummer's here and the bass is here and everybody's like going down a line. And then the band on top of that, then we're like at the back of the stage, which is not my ego. I really don't care, but it's just kind of boring and I'm kind of over it. And I know Leo is too. We talk about it all the time. So for a question for both of you is like, what do you think about staging, and where else could the band go that's not like obtrusive or whatever, besides like behind everybody?
Yeah. Leo?
I am experimenting with you. You know my answer. Yeah. We don't have
the audience doesn't.
Yeah, we don't have an answer. We kind of trying to figure it out, but I putting front stage side and
right.
There's a lot of conversations that goes into it, but I want to know about you, Raph.
I struggle with it, man. I've always felt like one of my biggest issues is having to create an evening length work with just dance. That's why I've done it for so long, because it was easy for me to take a musician or a DJ and put them in the space to take up choreography time, because I know my weakness was creating choreography long enough to do an evening length show. So let's do a DJ solo for 10 minutes. It takes out 10 minutes of choreography, right? This was my solution for my weakness. And then I figured out how to create better choreography that spoke to the idea of being on stage to create an evening length work. And so anything that I put on stage after that was in the way. It was to distract from the dance. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I started seeing it was a time when everybody seemed to be running out of things to do. So they would put TVs on stage and other musicians and somebody in a kiddie pool. Like all these things was becoming performance art, and the dance was slowly disappearing. I was like, I'm never going to do that. I have to keep trying to reconfigure or make my dance fresh, make the movements fresh, so I won't run out of stuff to do. With Sassafras, it was about demonstrating African-American improvisational street forms, right? That also showed maturity. I'm 50 years old. My musicians are 60, 65, and 70. And so you can't get no maturer than that. So here I am trying to display what a grown, mature man looks like dancing to grown, mature music. Because that's what jazz, to me, that's what jazz associated with. Like if we go back to the earlier part of the conversation, I saw the Nicholas brothers grown, right? And they weren't dancing. But I thought that's what happens after you stop dancing. You got to go get a regular an acting job or do something else because you can't dance anymore. Then I saw, I can't remember who, it was in Philly. I saw them dance at 90 something years old. My man put his cane down. He walked out with a cane, put the cane down, started dancing like he had no problems. I cried. I was like, that's it. That's what I should be able to do. So I got me a horn player. I got me a drummer. I got a piano. I got a bass. I'm going to do what I thought was not possible. And so now I'm hoping that people see that work as a grown work. But now the problem is they're in the back and I'm in the front, but I want to be next to them. I want to show some kind of relationship, not just them being in the back playing music for me to dance to, or not just me dancing to something that's occupying space. Can we turn it into an old dance club look, right? One of them old smoky jazz club looks. Can we do what David Burns did in Utopia? I want to cuss, but I'm not going to. That's
pretty extreme.
There were no wires.
Yeah.
There were no wires. The musicians were free to roam. That is the ultimate of what could be doing. But you need like $13 trillion to be able to figure that science out. So
yeah, you also had a drum line, whereas we have a drummer, so you have to split that drum into each of its parts. I mean, if people haven't seen Utopia, it's David Burns' Broadway show. He has, I'd say, about 13 musicians. They're all on wireless, but like one guy's playing the bass drum, one guy's playing snare, one guy's playing cymbal. It's like a marching band, but also marching band with keyboard, marching band with guitar, marching band with bass. And I was lucky enough to see it too. I loved it. But man, that's a lot of musicians, if nothing else. And that would be a big challenge for Leo to be like, all right, now you got to choreograph these people, all these like a guitar player walking around.
Yeah.
But that would be cool.
Yeah, it would be amazing, man. Listen, real quick, we have a question that's been lingering around for a minute. Is there a way that you guys can demonstrate funk and samba movements, the difference between the two?
We are talking about movements or the song. I think I can definitely demonstrate the song over here, like with my hands, and I will be happy to do it because I love it to show off.
Okay.
Do it.
So yeah, the funk. Let's go to samba first. I will just play claves from the samba. the samba rhythm. And my 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a classic samba rhythm, and the funk rhythm.
And Leo, just to be clear, like explain, because when you guys were talking about funk before, I thought you were talking about American funk, but like let them know.
Yes, yeah. What I will show, it's what we call funk in Brazil, but we do have American funk in Brazil, but there is this genre that we call funky carioca or Brazilian funk, that it's not what funk is, but it's a very well spread and like kind of underground music style and dance style too as well, that goes more like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, those are now like the two most main playing rhythms in Brazil.
And that's like, it's like club music, right?
Definitely, yeah. Club music, definitely played with electronic drums, and yeah. Cardi B played a little bit of funk in just now in the Grammys. Yeah, if you watch her performance, if you are able to get her performance, she did a little bit of funk, and that was pretty exciting. Yeah.
It's rocking. If you guys have never experienced that in a club, I'm not talking about the audience. If you've never experienced that loud, it's rocking. I'm telling you, you can't help but to just be like, and that's what funk does. You get the funk face. You be like, when your face tweaks up, that's how good the music is. That's called the funk face. Speaking of the rhythms that you did, I like I mentioned, I toured with what were they called? Maybe, I don't even know. I can't remember now. But Max Pollock was a dancer that I was on a tour with us. He's from Austria. And we would go to New Zealand, Hawaii, Australia, these different places, Portugal. And he would always go out and find different rhythms to learn that were indigenous to the place that we were at. And he would put them in the show. And I thought that was amazing, man. But this guy, he does this, he calls it rumba tap. So he has these rhythms and vocal patterns and traditional songs and everything that he does while he's tapping. Now, we have to show that video. You have to see how he does this. It's pretty amazing. So can we go to that video? Great. That's amazing. That is amazing. Can you do that, Greg? Come on, man.
Yeah, well, let me show you right now. Yeah, I'm just kidding, but actually we are, our saxophone player Jose Cruzata, I don't know if he's watching right now, but he's from Cuba. And so luckily we are able to incorporate some elements of Afro-Cuban music that he's kind enough to share with us and teach us, and even though, because a lot of it borders the spiritual. Yeah. So there was some stuff that we weren't sure, like he did in rehearsal and we're like, can we do that? Is that okay? You know, he's very generous, and you know, with the singing, the chanting, and the rhythms, and just teaching too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a really nice part of that the diaspora to incorporate.
Indeed. How important do you guys feel the connection to all of these things are? Like really being rooted, but yet being open enough to try some new things, right? And borrow from different traditions from around the world and bring them into your space. Like the connection with all of that. Like how do you feel about that?
I personally feel like it's an essential part of my actually being to do that, because as a good Brazilian, we say that we eat a lot of other cultures, digest and learn a way to do it in our own way. Like funk is an example, and like even samba, which is not, I mean, is a national rhythm for Brazilians, but it's not from our country. It comes from Africa. It was already samba over there and came to Brazil, and we renovated, let's say. So I am very drove into like just learning different things and mixing them in a way that it's kind of unique because it's us doing it. I always try to not appropriate, you know, like I try to have a lot of respect with everything that I'm borrowing from, and like really understand where I'm borrowing from and like why I am driving into this those connections and those cultures. I think we can even like just to show a little bit of how those borrowing things go, not only with us but like with everybody around the world. There's a couple of videos that we can see and see how the language actually travels from generation to generation. So if we can have a look onto video number 4 first. I will not say what it is. I will just let it play and you will get a taste.
Dang.
Yeah, that's a very short clip, but the body language over there, it's something that we can definitely see nowadays. And I mean, personally, like the very first movements that he does, it's like with his feet. It's not percussive, but you can see percussive. It could be percussive.
Yeah.
And the conversation also goes way farther than that. Like when I first saw house dancing, actually, I was like, wait, they are just tap dancing without tap shoes? That's what they're doing. You know, because there is a lot of footwork, and it's so similar to what tap dancers were doing. And we can also like hop into that illustration too as well. I'm just like, as I'm talking to y'all, I'm seeing this question over here. So maybe let's watch video number 5, and then I get this question that I just saw over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that video so much.
Yeah, yeah. It's a sample of a lot of. There's so many
It is.
samples
It
in
is.
that.
I gotta say, you guys, this might be like a part one of the series, because this is not enough time for us to just from that video alone. There's so many questions that just branch off into, other things, man. Leo, you want to grab that question?
Yeah, and the question is, I was wondering what the climate, the climate, like the peak of,
No, the climate, the environment.
okay,
Yeah.
climate of tap dance was like in Brazil, especially as a male dancer while growing up. Yeah, it's extremely wealthy, very, very wealthy, because it's an expensive art form, especially in Brazil. Like just to buy the shoe is a fortune, plus the lessons, and it's not like it's an art form that the government or the state are like trying to nurture, because it's not a Brazilian art form. So it's, if you wanted to do it, you have to spend money and have money, and that makes it very white. And it was asking also, as well as being a male. Yeah, I was literally the only male, the only black man, and like the only unprivileged person in the room. So it was I don't like to say traumatic experience, because I really enjoy it learning, but it was a shock of reality, like that this thing that I so appreciated, I couldn't find a point of reference within like my arm reach, and yeah, that was kind of the climate, and it is a little bit how it still is, like it's still a wealthy art form. There's much more representation right now. There's much more Brazilian, Afro-Brazilian tap dancers around, and I'm really proud of that. But it's still a very elitist art form in Brazil. Yeah.
Is it not maybe here a little bit, like a little bit too? It is like just dance studios, right? Or like kids going to get kids that get to go to a tap festival, or kids whose parents are sending them to New York to go to Steps for the summer or something. Like it's still all dance forms are elitist if it's in a studio, kind of, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. If they are in a studio, but there's there's a nurturing and a more I wouldn't say social. There's more worrying about like really pass on to everybody, and like it is an African American art form, and people try to push that. It's still expensive. It's still elitist, but there are ways, and like the history is from here, so it's kind of it happened here, so there's people watching for not to be just an elitist art form, or like not just being something like that. But yeah.
Greg, I have a question for you, man. Just that word alone, like elitist, is that an elitist word? And I ask that because if we are trying to move an art form forward, and it becomes something that more people want to get involved in, so we have to put it in a place that's accessible, and so it might eliminate some people who don't have access to that now. But does that mean that's elitist? And this is nothing against you. I just thought that, because you said now it becomes elitist if we put it in the studio.
I think it's like what you were saying before when you were referencing, like sometimes as Americans, black or white, sometimes we take these things and we throw them away, and someone else comes and picks them up, right? Like the blues rock and roll explosion coming out of Great Britain in the 60s, 70s. It's like nobody was buying Muddy Waters albums anymore. Like these weren't like famous people.
Yeah.
Eric Clapton and the Rolling Stones literally picked them up and kind of put them on a pedestal again and sold it back to us. And now, getting sold back to you by white people from a different country. So, I don't know. It's like, I grew up listening to, I don't know if you guys know this Paul Simon album, Graceland, where he went to South Africa and got all these killer musicians. And it was like, it's like, is it appropriation, or did he steal it, or is he helping them? Because who would know who Lady Blacksmith Mambazo is?
I love that album.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and
I like thinking about stuff like that, man. I think that's how we stay fresh, right? We keep digging up things, and we're not just stuck saying the same old thing that everyone else has said for years. Like, we're looking to be progressive in the form that we're part of, to move it forward and be there when the younger generation comes with those same questions. We've already done the digging for them, right? Mm-hmm. So there's not left to guess anymore. One of the things that I want to bring up is, there are indigenous forms. Like, for me, example, popping, locking, breaking they're not hip hop forms. Popping and locking is indigenous to the West Coast. Breaking is indigenous to the East Coast, right? But every city has something that they've done that has gotten out, and the world learns it, takes it on, turns into something else. One of the things in Philadelphia that we were known for was called Philly stepping. And it was also called GQing. And it reminds you of a lot of the footwork that the tap dancers were doing, right? There were rhythms. We thought a lot about the rhythms that were going on with the feet. And if the music was loud, if there was no music, you already had a pattern that you learned what your feet was doing. And it was, the first thing was a cha-cha. You learned the cha-cha, and the cha-cha went, right, was right, left, right, kickball change, right, left, right, kickball change, right? So you picked that up, and that was the rhythm that you followed. And then everything kind of came from that. To keep a rhythm, you would have coins in your pocket, and you would hold the end of your pocket and just shake your pocket. So it's like a hi-hat, or it would keep the ching, 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 ching. It would keep that rhythm. And so you have the change in your pocket, your feet are going, you know these rhythms. So when you get to a place where the music's too loud or your song's on, you're already in rhythm because you've practiced to the rhythms alone. And that's how I learned stepping, just not having a music to keep up with, but the patterns and the rhythms that were going on with your feet, similar to what tap was doing. You don't need music. You guys learn the way your feet are moving and the sounds that they make. So when you're not tapping, when you're not moving, you hear the rhythm. So it's just, now you just put your feet in the place of where you hear the rhythm. So let me say this before we wrap up. Let me ask this question. It's for both of you guys. What is hip hop, man? Like, after watching the videos and, listening to you guys talk about traditions and the things that how organically you're creating this thing, not one time did we say any of that was hip hop, but we show a video that anybody will look at if you turn that music off. Oh, that's hip hop dance. So I ask you, what is hip hop? Not that it could be answered, but what is hip hop, man?
I mean, I guess there's a lot of different answers, right? Like, it's a culture. It's all the little components. If you try to be technical, it's like people are like, well, it's tagging plus dancing plus emceeing plus, all the things. I think there's a lot of similarity between hip hop culture and tap culture, in that people argue about who's the gatekeeper and what it is and what did it start and who has the right to do it, and did it die?
Yeah.
Or never died, or did it come back, or did it sell out? You know what I mean? It's pretty nebulous, and I'm really not an expert on either. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can't really answer that. Ultimately, man, we have every form has borrowed from an experience and an environment to create the things that we do. And everything that has moved forward from whatever origin point has been influenced by everything along the way, right? Whether it's simple movements, whether it's saying hi to someone, fixing your hat, wiping your eyebrows, wiping the sweat, brushing your shoulder off. All these things, all these movements ultimately become part of the canon of dance, whether it's hip hop dance or contemporary, right? So do you guys consider yourself, oh, no. What kind of company do you consider yourself to be? And what I mean is contemporary, hip hop, rock, alternative, jazz, funk. What do you guys, what do you fit?
I would say we are a percussive a percussive dance band. I don't even like to call us a dance company. I rather have the band or live band. Yeah, I don't have a label. Yeah,
I like that. I like that. I can get
live, but we are a band that do percussive dance. Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think, you know, sometimes when you're trying to you know, like make your bio, or you're trying to like encapsulate yourself, but then you're also trying to sell yourself, but you're also trying to give someone an idea, but it's not really accurate.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, you know, what I've been thinking about lately is that like so much of our music is actually rock. Like I grew up listening to rock. It's like we get like psychedelic rock all the time, like solos, guitars, but it's more sexy to be like Brazilian, Afro-Cuban, like jazz, and those things are all there real strong. But for sure it's just as much rock, but like we don't always say that because I don't always think of it that way. And also it feels like a bit of a cop-out sometimes when you're like, well, we have so many influences that you just can't just can't say anything. Everybody says that about themselves, but I really feel that it's true. You know?
Let's call things like that exotic. I mean, they do it for the human being. Let's call you guys are exotic. Let's do that. Organically exotic. How about that? Anyway, listen, man. That was an incredible conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did, and I want to see you guys live. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah,
maybe
likewise.
we'll do some kind of collaboration. We're going to be in the same area. We can easily reach out to each other, man. So I'm hoping we can get down and build.
Yeah, definitely. We have some residencies coming up, and hopefully when we are back on stage, we'll let you know, and you do the same for us.
Right on. You got it. You got it. No doubt.
Likewise. Thank you, Rafael.
Hey, everyone. What a great conversation. We were really honored to have you with us, and we look forward to having you with us in person. So, you know, we heard this excellent conversation between Rafael Xavier's work and the work of Music from the Soul, and we look forward. You know, you'll be in conversation in the space, even though you'll be here at different times. But as our audiences get to know you and see the influence of contemporary dance, I think that the conversation you had with each other was really illuminating to how dance lives alive within us, and we're soaking in our culture like a sponge, and it's coming out, whether it's a Savion Glover or a, you know, contemporary mover, or somebody who's just studied tap, and it just all influences each other. So thanks for rubbing off on our community here in Hartford, as you are influencing us and changing our future path. I want to say that, you know, our next week we'll be casting live again next week. Next week's focus is on tap as music. So it's going to, Greg, get ready. We're going to go deep into your process. Going to go deep into your process as, you know, bringing the music into the forefront. And Leo, what you said at the very end, how you see it as a sort of a rhythmic musical band, all of you working together. I think that's where we'll hone in our conversation. It's going to be hosted by a local Hartford area woman, Claire O'Donnell. So she'll be bringing her knowledge and so hosting that conversation. So come on back. We'll see you guys. Raphael, Gregory, Leo, be well.
Thank you all. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.